Hi guys, welcome to our second weekly Q&A session here for CoinMetro. I'm Kevin Mirko, CEO of CoinMetro. I'm just going to kind of hang out here and wait for you guys to pop in your questions, and we'll just get right to it. So Daniel's just saying hi. So hi Daniel, how are you? I guess I'll lead in this week just by saying that for those of you who aren't aware, this week, or this past week, or this week actually, on the 9th, we were approved for our Estonian licenses. So that's our crypto to fiat exchange and e-wallet service licenses by the FIU here in Estonia. So that's our, I guess, the major thing that happened this week. So Daniel's saying it's a bit hard to hear me. You guys are going to have to bear with me. I'm going to run and grab another microphone. So give me 15 seconds here. Hold on. Okay, this hopefully should make it a bit better for everyone, and you should be able to hear me a bit clearer. If not, please let me know. So I see Martin says that he can't hear. Martin, is it better now? Are you able to hear me better than you were before? Okay, great. Looks like everybody can hear me. So what did I say about licensing? Daniel's asking what I said about licensing. So on the 9th, so this week, just earlier this week, we were approved for our 2 licenses, operating licenses here in Estonia by the FIU, and that's our e-wallet and crypto to fiat exchange licensing. So as of the 9th, we are 100% operational, or ready to be operational here in Estonia. Jeremy's asking if there's any more updates with Ripple. So up to this point, up till today, I've still been playing a bit of cat and mouse with Miguel Villas, who is the head of XRP markets at Ripple. So our 2 schedules are a bit heavy, I guess, is the best way to put it. So when I was in the Ukraine, he had a bit of time, and I was in the Ukraine. Then when I came back, he went on a bit of a traveling spree, and so we're trying to catch base again. But we've been emailing back and forth, so he knows what I'm looking for, and I think I know what he's looking for from our side. So progress is being made, but as of right now, nothing really to announce. But I do think we'll have something to announce over the next coming weeks. Jason says congrats on the license. Thank you, Jason. Any developments with banking? So, yeah, a few developments here or there. We have a lot of, we're working right now, part of our team is working right now on basically banking applications. So we've gotten some leads on banks, mostly in Europe, also outside of Europe, in Asia, and a couple, we actually met with a local finance company here in Estonia, who we may begin to work with as well, that run like a payment institution. We also have some accounts that have already been approved by a payment institution, an e-money licensed institution in Lithuania. And we're currently in discussion with about 6 or 7 different banks in the EU and outside of the EU. So these type of things are, difficult to announce. You don't want to ruffle any feathers until you actually have a working relationship. Rest assured, though, that it is something that we're working on, and when we do have something that we can actually announce, we will do that for sure. feel maybe I should just pick up a topic and start talking about it. I don't see too many questions rolling in this week, which I guess is a good thing. People aren't really, we must have gave too many updates, I guess, this past week. Okay, so Nilito Fernandez is asking, what do you think about implementing KYC just for withdrawal, at least at the beginning? I've seen a lot of exchanges losing clients because of mandatory KYC. Not possible, Nilito, for the very simple reason that we cannot accept funds without knowing where they're coming from, or we'd be violating anti-money laundering practices as well as know your client practices. As now a licensed institution here in Estonia, we need to adhere to KYC and AML best practices, which includes making sure we know who our clients are, where their funds are coming from, and that also includes, by the way, actually monitoring of blockchain transactions so that we can link bad actors to other bad actors on the blockchain. So exchanges you see now that allow withdrawals or crypto-to-crypto exchanges without any type of KYC or AML will either need to change the way they do business in the very near future, or they will simply not be able to operate in a legal manner. Geraldo Melero is U.S. contributions from Flash will be able to keep them. I have to be careful how I word this answer, Gerardo, because when you deal with regulators and you deal with laws, you need to make sure, obviously, that you're compliant. At the same time, obviously, on a commercial side, you want to make sure that you're able to basically make all your clients happy to the best of your ability. My answer to that is this. We do have a solution. The solution cannot be announced, unfortunately. What I can tell you is that after XCM is minted, right before the XCM is minted and then tradable, all U.S. contributors, whether you're accredited or non-accredited, will have a way to able to keep their tokens. Non-accredited will have to go through a very small process in order to obtain their tokens. But yes, all U.S. contributors will be able to keep their tokens. Unfortunately, I can't give you any more specifics, but those specifics will come out in due time, right before XCM is tradable on the platform. Christian is asking, what are the odds of releasing the platform on the first, second week of June? Do you think there are chances of postponing it? How's the back-end, front-end development going? So Christian, right now, that's our timeline. So I would say the odds are high. Timelines can change, but right now the timeline looks accurate. We do have some of our development team that is being changed at the moment, and we're bringing on new people, which obviously can sometimes cause a bit of a delay. But we're also seeing some additional workflow from parts of our team that were lagging behind. So right now that timeline looks accurate. If there are further delays, we deal with those as they come. However, obviously we're not hoping or waiting or expecting delays. I apologize if I miss you guys' questions. If I don't get to your questions, it's because it just simply went off my screen. But I will read questions as they come, and then if your question was missed, then just go ahead and post it again. Bart is saying, thank you very much for doing another AMA. Can you give a comment on the New York Attorney General's inquiry on the 13 biggest crypto exchanges? It's news from about 3 weeks ago. Sure, yeah, obviously I read that news just like probably most other people in the crypto space, at least those that tend to have their ear to the ground for this type of news. Not much news about it, I think. The fact that regulators and lawmen and people involved in politics and law actually want to do some research and figure out how these businesses operate, what type of procedures they're following, how they're monitoring transactions, either learning from them or finding cases that need maybe to be looked at further for either prosecution or some other means, makes sense to me. I mean, that's essentially how regulation works. And while your personal views or even your business views on regulation obviously may be different, the fact is that there's no way that a market becomes as large as the crypto market is now and as large as it will be in the future without regulation. Unfortunately, there's no way around it, because if you take regulation out of the picture, you take banking out of the picture. And if you take banking out of the picture, the ability for this market to grow larger than it is now becomes strained, very strained. So regulation is important and it's needed. The caveat there is that we need to make sure that regulation is done so that, one, it protects the consumer, and that really should be the first goal of regulation. But aside from protecting the consumer, it needs to make sure that innovation stays alive and that we don't stifle innovation. And for that to happen, we need the community to help the regulator, basically. And it's starting to happen in pockets around the world, and I'm 100% for that, so I hope it continues. Martin Kleining is asking, have you made any decision about the flash sale? Definitively no, Martin. My idea is this, and I think most of the community shares this same idea. A lot of people talk about burning tokens and limiting supply. And from a pure market, let's say, definition or pure market the functionality standpoint, I agree that limited supply should equal a rising price. But I also know that right now, at least in this immature market we find ourselves in, which is the crypto market, limited demand does not automatically correlate, limited supply, I'm sorry, does not automatically correlate into demand. What does correlate into demand is hype. And the best way to instigate hype in the crypto space is through sales, unique selling points. So on that aspect, I am for some additional sales, but under certain restrictions. I think the rise in price might have to be correlated to a time, to a certain segment of time, rather than an amount of tokens sold, so that we can make sure we induce price increases. And then two, it has to be done right before an actual launch of the tradable token, which means if we're going to launch on the third day of X month, then the first, second, or and third day we can have a sale, possibly. But we need to be able to go right into live trading right after those sales complete. So, again, the decision hasn't been made, and there's still other things to look at. Obviously, the market as it is today, which is a little more bullish than it was a month ago, may not be as bullish in another month or another 3 or 4 weeks. So the decision is going to be made rather spontaneously around the time that it's possible to do the sale. And of course, we're going to make sure everybody knows what that decision is, and I'll make sure everybody knows what that decision is, if and when it's made, whether we go ahead or not. Geraldo, amen to that, Kevin. Also, is the development up for the exchange ahead of schedule? The current schedule, this 4 weeks we've mapped out, I would say it's on schedule. Other pieces of the ecosystem, though, ETCF, TAM, the debit cards, etc., some of those are slightly ahead of schedule, and the work that we're putting in on the exchange now, which includes some work that wasn't initially, let's say, in the process when we initially mapped out the roadmap, should mean that we actually get some of those features released before we initially thought they would be released, so ahead of schedule. Jason Parser is asking, there's been a lot of debate over the whole having an extra flash sale. What's your current feelings on it? So I just made some comments on that, Jason. I feel that if we can coordinate the sales right before the launch of the tradable token, that it's something that we should definitely look into. Especially if we can tie in price increases to time factors rather than the amount of tokens sold, so we can ensure price increases into the actual tradability of the token. It'll help us create some hype, and that hype should induce more buying once it's live on the exchange, which should induce, well, at the end of the day, price increases rather than decreases. Martin, what's your opinion on Robinhood's $363 million US funding round? Sorry, I have my daughter behind me playing. It's Friday, so. 363 money round. Do you see any need of funding? Do you see any need of funding rounds? Sorry, guys, for CoinMetro as well to catch up. Catch up. Well, It's a good question, Martin. I don't know if catching up on the amount of money in one's bank is actually what we need to focus on. Obviously, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan have a lot of money in the bank, and those companies are now starting to acquire crypto exchanges. But money in the bank doesn't necessarily mean success, nor does it mean a quick launch of a product or an expanded market. There's a lot of things that kind of correlate into that. I also think that, look, hats off to Robinhood for their funding round. That's great. It shows that there's interest in the space. It shows that there's institutional interest in this space, which is good for us, even if we're not part of that funding round. It means that right now there's a lot of eyes on this space, and that's great. It also means that Robinhood has probably realized that they need to push the regulation angle harder, and regulation is expensive. I think I congratulate them. I think it's great for the entire industry as a whole. It doesn't scare me or make me think that they're somehow, ahead of us. They might have a little more money than we do, and that's great, but we'll definitely catch up to them in due time. As far as capital goes, it just gives me, it gives the whole industry a rosier look. When institutional money starts coming into a space, it means that there's some level of trust, some level of, let's say, even institutional hype, where they believe that there's something here that's worth money. And if Robinhood is worth money, it makes CoinMetro worth money. So yeah, I'm happy all around, and I don't think it means that they're generally speaking ahead of us, other than the fact that their bank account has a few more zeros right now. Daniel Bragman is asking, if there is a flash sale, where will we be able to buy XCM with fiat? Good question. That's a great question, Daniel. Maybe. That's the best answer I can give you right now. Maybe, because we are working right now on client segregated accounts. I do believe they most likely will be ready before XCM is tradable, but I can't make any guarantees, because just like regulation, banking can tell you it's going to take a week and it can take 6. They can tell you a month and it can take 3 days. So unfortunately, I can't give you, but it's a possibility. And because we have our e-wallet and crypto to fiat exchange licensing now in the bag, it's legal. So it takes away the problem we had in Hong Kong with not being able to accept fiat. So it is possible, yes. Nicholas A. Londono is asking when the website profile and authentication will be fixed for acceptance. It's been like that for 3 months and no fix. Is going to be a refund for U.S. investors. Okay, Nicholas, I'm going to try to tackle this one in pieces. So website profile and authentication. Well, it's not broken because about 5,000 people have gone through the process. So obviously it works. That doesn't mean that there might be localized issues. That doesn't mean that there might be maybe it's not explained as best it should. Maybe your application is pending because you're a U.S. resident, and because right now we were giving instructions to our compliance people to actually hold back on U.S. residents till we were sure exactly what we were going to be able to do with them. Now actually we're going through the backlog. So we have 10 people or so going through the backlog every day on all those KYCs, especially for the U.S., mainly for the U.S. So I would expect that backlog to be cleared in the next couple weeks. As I said, I fully expect that all U.S. contributors that have contributed will not have an issue. So I do not envision any scenario where refunds will be necessary, except for maybe some outliers. Well, obviously, if people don't pass KYC or AML, are on some sanctioned or PEP list, or they have some type of nefarious activity inside of their e-wallet, inside of their wallets, they will be accepted without issue. Jason, Kevin, looking at the TradingView mockup, it looks a lot different from what I would consider a traditional trading interface. Would you explain that a little bit? Okay, Jason, so that's a mockup. Let's just, let me start off there. You don't see candlesticks because the charts that were used for the mockup were simple line charts, but candlesticks are available as well as other types of charts, including point and figure charts, line charts, bar charts, candlestick charts. Different types of candlestick charts, Japanese candlesticks, all kinds of different So there's going to be different types of charting for sure. The point is to be a bit different, to be honest. Everybody kind of offers the same thing. So of course, if you want charting, if you want to be able to add indicators and you want to be able to change the type of chart you're using, you're going to be able to do that. But the interface itself, the whole idea is to make it a little more simplified than most interfaces. And a lot of people, when they see all those tools in one place, especially candlestick charts, again, for a mock-up, most people don't know what candlestick charts are. So a line chart is a little easier for most people to understand. Oh, that's a graphical interpretation of price. Candlestick chart might make that a bit more difficult, but they definitely will be included in the platform 100%. The charting library is coming from Chart IQ. That's chartiq.com. You can have a look to see what kind of charting interface we will have moving forward. Bart Bosser, CoinMetro KYC is compliant with the new EU privacy laws. Yes, it is. We are going through the GDPR as we speak, actually. So there's a few caveats with the GDPR and the fact that we're a financial entity. So, for instance, financial entities need to hold data for between 7 and 10 years, depending on the jurisdiction. So that means that even if we're not using the data, normally with the GDPR, if you're not using data or you don't need specific data for specific activities, you need to erase that data, delete it. We don't fall into that category because by law we actually have to hold that data. So it makes GDPR a bit easier in certain instances for financial companies. But yes, we will be, and we are working on and will be 100% GDPR compliant once the laws go into effect on the 25th. There is one major caveat there, and that's the blockchain. So there's let's say inside GDPR regulation, there's what's called anonymous data and then identifiable data. I believe that's the two terms that are used, but you get the point. Now, the GDPR says that even IP addresses can be identifiable data, even if they're dynamic, which is a bit ridiculous because I can have one IP address today, you can have the same one tomorrow. The point is, though, that when we do store trade information post-trade in the blockchain, the question is that anonymous or is it identifiable data? And we haven't answered that question yet, and unfortunately no legal minds that we've brought this to can answer that question yet. So there is going to be a lingering question about blockchain and GDPR, but I'm sure we're not the only ones that have that question. And initially, during our initial beta launch, the blockchain actual data repository won't actually be functional. So it's not going to cause any legal issues for us. Martin Kleining, our CoinMetro's banking partners are already working with other exchanges, so we could just switch to CoinMetro. Hey Martin, I'm not sure what obviously we've done some research to see what other exchanges use. A lot of the exchanges tend to use the same banking, that's for sure. They also tend to use the same e-money or PSP, payment service providers, etc. I'm not quite sure that just because they're using the same bank that somehow that means you can just switch over to us. We still have to do KYC, we still have to do our processes. I'm not sure how much that makes it easier. Obviously, if you've set up accounts on a PSP or a payment service provider and we use the same one, you don't have to reset up that account, so I guess that does make it a bit easier. Umar Abbas, sorry if I'm butchering that name, by the way. How confident are you that TAM will be available in October? I'm pretty confident about TAM. The TAM itself is really, well, it's our tokenization platform, so it's part of the ICO Express. Part of the functionality is built off of that base. And the rest is really just the exchange and basically user interface. So I'm pretty confident on October. I think that's one of the features that we probably will be able to release before the initial, let's say, deadline based on our initial roadmap. Christian Nexu, I hope you'll be able to set both stop loss and take profit orders. Binance only allows one of those, but not both in the same time. So if I have to set a stop loss, for example, and cannot set a take profit as the amount of crypto has been already hold. Yeah, good point. Most exchanges that are on the market right now don't have the ability to do complex checks on margin. So that's why you put one order. Basically what they do, as soon as you type in any order, whether it's a pending order, a limit order, a buy stop, sell stop, whatever it is, it automatically pulls that available balance from that balance or that margin, the margin that's needed from your available balance. So you're right, you can't immediately set another order. And it's actually one thing we brought up during whiteboarding. So we plan to be able to actually allow you to set any order based on a specific So set any type of standing order or pending order based on an active order, and it won't affect the margin already being used on that active order. What you won't be able to do, obviously, is if you have 5,000 euro in your account. If you have 5,000 euro in your account and you have a pending order to buy 5,000 euro worth of Bitcoin, you're not going to be able to submit a pending order to buy 5,000 euro worth of whatever. You will, however, be able to set a pending order to sell that same 5,000 Bitcoin at a higher price so that it acts somewhat like either a take profit or a stop loss for that initial order. Jeremy John, any plans to have organizations like charities, e-commerce agents to create login accounts like Coinbase? Jeremy, I'm not really familiar with that on Coinbase. I actually don't have a Coinbase account. You guys don't have to excuse me for one second. I can do a little parenting real quick because my daughter's starting to get a little bit on my nerves here on Friday. She's running away. She's playing a little bit, but I apologize for that. It's not the most professional thing in the world, but it is Friday afternoon, and unfortunately I'm kind of babysitting at work. So, organizations like charities, e-commerce agents to create login accounts. I assume you mean open accounts. So, charities and e-commerce agents. I don't follow the question, I'm sorry. If you're asking if we will allow corporate accounts, you have to give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Little parenting 101 for anybody who's a young parent here. All right, apologies, guys. Okay, Bart Bosser, just call me Robin Timmerman. Okay, Robin, I borrowed this account. Are there more details yet on leverage trading? Will there be some sort of crypto lending to traders? Yeah, we have a swap marketplace. So let's say similar to what Bitfinex has, just better, where people will be able to loan, whether it be fiat or crypto, to other traders. Initially, we're going to allow someone to borrow up to 3 times of what their actual balance is. So if you have 10,000 on your account, you'd be able to borrow up to an additional 30,000 and then trade the entire 40,000 worth of equity on your account. So that'll induce some leverage. We're also looking to offer OTC trading, which means futures, basically, or CFDs for crypto. That'll come later down the line, but that'll increase the possible leverage going up to 50 to 1. We do over time. Now, the reason why we're capping 3 to 1 for swap lending, at least initially, is an easy question to answer, and that's risk mitigation. So while we know very well how to handle risk on the FX side, because of FX Pig, we've been doing it for years, this is a different market, and we don't want to make assumptions on how to handle the risk. And we don't want to look at other people's risk data, other exchanges, to make assumptions on how we're going to handle our own risk. We want to actually see how the risk actually appears on the platform and then figure out how to mitigate it on our end. Once we do that, which shouldn't take too much time to be honest, once we collect the data, once we're able to mitigate that risk, we will open up the gate so that higher leverage can be offered on that lending side as well. So it maybe goes to 5 to 1, 10 to 1 at some point in the future. I believe Alexis is saying he believes Jeremy John meant merchant accounts. Well, Jeremy, if you did mean merchant accounts, yes. So I've talked about this in the past, but for me, at least personally, I think that being a fiat to crypto exchange, a licensed one, basically makes you a crypto bank by default without a banking license. Banking licenses are hundreds of years old. They've been around for a long time. E-money licensing and now this crypto to fiat exchange licensing gives you some of the major, you can offer some of the same major services. Banking license used to allow checks and things like that no one uses anymore. Now it's all about remittance and payments. So yes, I do, my goal with CoinMetro is to make it a one-stop shop for all things financial, and that means offering merchant accounts, that means offering cross-border payments, that means working both regionally and globally on different types of payment services, and yes, that would include merchant accounts, debit cards, payroll cards, all types of different services, allowing companies to tokenize themselves, to pay payroll, to pay bonuses, to offer reward systems to their clients, to their employees, all via one platform. So in the future, off the roadmap, yes, I do envision that to happen. Rehan, June already trading. Hey Rehan, so the beta we expect to launch in June. The initial launch of the beta will probably not include XCM trading because we want to make sure that the actual engines are functioning. Everything will be in demo mode essentially, and this demo mode is not going to last that long. It probably, in my mind, is only going to last weeks, not months, and probably less than a month, hopefully. Maybe weeks, as in 2 or 3. This is going to find, let's say, any larger bugs that may exist in the system. Once we've done that, then we open it up and we actually do a beta, but it's an actual real beta. And once we're sure that that everything is working correctly and that we're mitigating our own risk, that there is no existential risk on our side, we will start to allow XCM trading. So it very well could happen in June. But as we get closer to the launch of the beta, as we know the features that are going to be ready, as we see how much testing we've been able to do in-house leading up to that point, then I'll be able to answer that question better for you. Holger Schmedecki, maybe. Laugh out loud, crypto not speculative enough without futures? Well, everything's speculative, right? Even, doesn't matter what market you're in, they're all speculative markets. Futures does, however, bring in quite a lot more liquidity because, well, it's all market-made liquidity, right? So it makes a big difference. But yeah, I agree with you. Futures are speculative. Not as speculative as crypto, that's for sure, but still speculative. Jeremy John, yes, that is correct. Merchant accounts could bring in lots of volume. Yeah. Obviously, we're all about volume, right? That's what our business is. It's all about volume. But it's, and I've said this from the beginning, there's certain things we need a lot of speed on. I think regulation in banking needs a lot of attention from us in the beginning, and we need to be as quick as we possibly can in those aspects. When it comes to building out the services, we need to make sure they work and they're better than anything else that's out there before we push out the first iteration, I think, at least on a more production scale. But the good thing is, guys, that you guys and the people that were our initial contributors are a great pool to test things on. So we have a wide range of clients inside that pool. So we're gonna try to basically make as many revenue streams as we possibly can, and merchant accounts is definitely one of those. John Parser, in the mock-ups it looked like Discord integration was teased. Are those chats going to be moderated by CoinMetro or by the coin teams themselves? Hey Jason, so Discord, yeah, I'm not sure that we actually plan on bringing in Discord itself. What we do plan is creating something with many Discord-like features. There will be global moderation to a certain extent from CoinMetro. This isn't to mute anyone's views or anything like that. It's to make sure that we have a controlled environment. We are a regulated entity, which means we can't have certain types of conversations going on. We also obviously have people of all ages. Some of us are family men, family women, moms and dads, etc. So there will be a certain amount of policing, so to speak. But generally speaking, yes, what you see on that platform is one piece of a much larger community central kind of ideal that we're trying to build around the platform. So on the front end, we will have pages for each token we list on our exchange. Those pages will give news and updates and import the Telegram communities of those tokens, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What we want to do is create one continuous kind of ecosystem so that everything that has to do with that token can remain in CoinMetro. Their community can remain here, their news can remain here, their updates, anything that has to do with that token, with that asset can remain on CoinMetro. So it's a huge piece of what we want to develop because at least what I've seen from my commercial experience now in this space is that community means a lot, and it makes a very big difference to that hype factor, and the hype factor makes a very big difference to volumes, and volumes make a very big difference to our revenue. So it's to me it's an easy decision. Bart Bozer, one-stop shop for all financial. would it just be easier to call CoinMetro a bank 2.0? Well, the word bank is usually frowned upon by most people. Crypto was created because frowning on banks, and now for some reason, we all want to kind of push that back 360 degrees and go back to banking. But I don't know. Bank, we're not going to offer. Well, we are not going to offer loans. The platform will allow swap loans, so actually tradable loans, which I guess you can consider a loan base. We're not going to do a lot of the things banks do. We obviously don't. We're not going to use fractional reserves and all those rather notorious things that banks do. So I don't know if I want to call it a bank, but I think the fact that we're a let's say a fintech platform for just the new generation of fintech platforms, which will allow people to basically transact worldwide for a cheap price, rapidly, efficiently, and keep things simple. So, yeah, I don't know if we want to say the word bank. We probably can't when it comes to regulation reasons, to be honest. But obviously the word bank makes people understand the scope of what we can offer, that's for sure. Holger, sorry, did not make it earlier. Could you quickly speak about plans for ICO pre-sale space again? Competition are heating up quickly. Yeah, I don't worry too much about competition. In my life, I've never worried about competition. I think people that worry about competition lag behind the competition. What I am doing is I'm vigilant in trying to know what my clients want. If I know what my clients want and I provide them what they want, then that leads to success and leads to me doing better than my competitors. So at the end of the day, I agree with you. It's heating up, but that's a good thing, because the more people that get in this space, look, we're still in quite a bubble when it comes to ICOs, and the majority of ICOs will fail. And when I say majority, it's high 90 percentile will fail. And some of them will fail because they're frauds. Some of them will fail because they simply don't have leadership or experience on their teams. Some of them will fail because of infighting. Some of them will fail because they attempted to solve a problem that nobody really cares about, that doesn't really exist in anyone's real life. And others will fail, well, because, well, a myriad of other reasons, right? So the fact that competition is heating up is a good thing. Competition is a good thing. You don't want to be the only one out in the market. It means you're spending all your marketing dollars and spending all your money to make some awareness, and then maybe you fail. But if everybody else is getting the awareness out there, then you can kind of ride the coattails. So the idea for the possible new flash sales is this. The only way I'll do this is if we do it right on the back of the token being tradable. That means 3 or 4 days before we absolutely know the token will be tradable. We do a few flash sales. We base them on time, meaning that, let's say, day 1, 12 cents, day 2, 13 cents, day 3, 14 cents, day 4, launch at 15 cents. It will allow the price to get a little more cushion, which should make everyone happy. It'll induce FOMO, and it'll induce hype based on the automatic price increases. And if we can create enough hype around that internally in our community, between Telegram and between the 40-some-odd thousand people we now have on our mailing list, and perhaps some outward advertising, though that wouldn't be the first place I would start, we should be able to create enough hype where that we can somewhat stabilize the token price for the first few days as well once it's live on the exchange. So the decision hasn't been fully made, and it won't be made probably for another couple weeks. Once it is, obviously, you guys will be the first to know. Steve Cavendish, Korea's Coin One exchange joined Ripple's Xcurrent. Could you join that platform for quicker payments? It's one thing we plan on talking to Miguel Villas, at the head of XRP markets at Ripple. That is one of the comments we'll be talking about, is Xcurrent for the Baltic and Nordic region to start. They don't have any partners up here in the Baltics and Nordics. They're all pretty decent markets to operate in. They're already mostly digitalized for the most part. So I think adoption would be quite fast. So yes, it's something that we're going to talk to Ripple about for sure. Calvin Rutuwene, I'm sorry, but what is a merchant account? So a merchant account is like when you go to the store and you want to buy something with a credit card or a debit card, and they run your card through the little machine. that's essentially a merchant account. So that's merchant account is where a merchant, a store, or a provider of services can process payments using one or more payment methods. So that's essentially what a merchant account is. Jason Parser, something I'm worried about with the chat social side is that there are a lot of spammers and scammers in the crypto community, so something like that will need a lot of moderation if it wants to be enjoyable to use. You're right, Jason. And that look, the caveat from open not the caveat, but the downside to open communication is open communication. So yeah, I agree with you. You got to think though that we will be vetting everything that comes on our exchange from day one. We're not going to allow things that are openly just a mess. We're not going to allow tokens and things that we can see from the start that are going to cause an issue. That doesn't mean that we might not have a client that may come in and cause an issue. But the first time that client creates an issue, they get a warning, whether it's on channel for X token or Y token. The second time they do get another warning. The third time they're out. Simple as that. So you know, people can make mistakes and get heated on a debate. That's fine. But you know, moderation is going to be needed. That means staffing. But you know, we're really focusing on client retention and client support here. By far, our biggest staffing segment will be support. So those guys will also be tasked with that moderation. And you know, we hope to build the best support team in the industry. So I'm pretty sure they'll be able to handle it. Having said that, obviously, it will take time for things to run perfectly. You know, nothing happens perfectly overnight, unfortunately. Sammy Laurie, I have tried to get support, but no one can help me. Well, if I can't really help you either if you don't tell me what your problem is. So let me know what your problem is, and maybe I can help you right now. Daniel Bragman, do you have any ICOs lined up for the ICO Express? Well, the ICO Express obviously is a place to launch an ICO, which means if there are already ICOs out there, they've already kind of done that work for them. Plus, the ICO Express isn't scheduled to launch until closer to the end of the year. What we do have, we've been putting feelers out there to companies like venture capitalist type companies, family offices, things where companies that get approached by ICOs to help them, rating agencies, etc. So we already have some little roots out there that are starting to gather some information. And as we get closer, we're looking to hire internally what we call our token liaison, which will basically be someone that travels around and talks to ICOs, that goes to all the ICO conferences, that knows a little bit about market mechanics, etc., and can go around and basically sell these services to all these companies, and help us vet who's going to be listed, etc. So anyway, as I said, as that's coming later in the year, we have some other things to focus on initially right now, but we will start to focus on that majorly once we get past the first few hurdles of getting the exchange launched. Bart Bosser, with the crypto space getting more and more regulated, what do you think is the future for anonymous coins? Will CM still list them in the regulation institutions are not high on them? Unfortunately, no, we will not list them. And the future for those is quite bleak. No regulator is going to allow a system that can somehow be completely anonymous. Now, some of those coins, while they say they're anonymous, it's a misnomer. And it's a misnomer because as they get used more and more data points can be mined. And at the end of the day, that data mining can actually provide some type of detectability. Now, there are other coins that are in that list that use different types of technology to cloak the actual addresses that are used. Those type of tokens, unfortunately, in a regulated space, cannot function. And I do know there's this disdain in the community for that very reason. But unfortunately, anonymous payments, whether from a personal standpoint, you may think they're cool, or you may like them because people you don't necessarily want other people to know where you're spending your money. But at the end of the day, even Bitcoin and Ethereum provide you with some level of anonymity for your basic personal expenses. If you're doing criminal activity, however, I myself want to know when people do criminal activity because I don't want them in my ecosystem. And the fact that those systems kind of prevent us from being able to find out who's dealing in human trafficking, child pornography, terrorist activities, etc., I don't see a future for those. And to be honest, personally speaking, I would rather those people were caught for those types of transactions, because I wouldn't want them sitting next to me or my family on an airplane or a bus or what have you. So, yeah, not a very big future for those guys. They'll just be pushed further underground, which may exacerbate the issue at hand. But no regulator is going to allow that type of token, currency, altcoin, whatever. Thanks, Getro, for coming in and helping out Samuel. Appreciate that. For anyone who doesn't know, Getro works on our support team out of Macedonia, so big up to Getro for jumping on here and helping out and listening to me babble for an hour. So cool. Daniel Bragman, how is the hiring process going? It's going well. So we're in our talent office. I know we do these on Friday at 5 p.m. So Friday at 5 p.m. people like to run out of here. So you haven't generally seen anybody sitting in this office, but we have 11 people in this office now. We have currently 2 offers out to 2 different people, so that could bring us up to 13. Another 2 cybersecurity guys that may come on as well. That could bring us to 16 in the relatively short term here. We also just got some real interesting CVs for our COO position that we're currently going over. We're bringing on a office manager and a recruiter on Monday, so she'll start fresh on Monday. So yeah, hiring's going well. Obviously everybody would love everything to go faster, but unfortunately sometimes that's just not a possibility. But I think, to be honest, I think we're moving at a pretty good clip. And we're having the guys from Ukraine come up to our office next week for 2 days. We're going to map out how we're going to work things down in the Ukraine, and I do think we should have 20 or so people in the Ukraine by the time we get into maybe midway through our beta. So we'll start pushing that office as well, and we're looking at hiring a few extra people in our Mexico office as well. Having said that, guys, anybody on here that has any type of skill set that you think may be beneficial to CoinMetro, we will have a career page, by the way, by next week, and between you and me and everybody in this channel right now, the new version of our website, so the non-ICO, more exchange-based website, will be up next week as well. We've been working on that quite feverishly for the past couple weeks. And when it does go up, there will be a career page. But having said that, if you guys think you might be a good fit here at CoinMetro, please reach out to us. Let us know. We look for talent everywhere. So if you're talented and we like you, then maybe you'll become part of the team. All right, guys. I don't. Let's see if we have any more questions pop in. So Kerming Cho, any plan to offer dedicated desktop application? In the short term, no, it's not on the plan. What I'll say is this: I think over time, especially once regulation catches up to crypto, so that crypto trading is more highly regulated, it'll mean that more institutional and more professional money starts to flow into the space, and that's going to mean the need. That's going to push us, and that's going to push the need for a desktop application, because it's obviously more stable than a web-based application for someone who's doing any type of high-frequency trading. Now, a lot of those guys use APIs, but if the API goes down and they need to, breeze through 2,000 or 3,000 orders to figure out what they need to close, or interact with a system, most of those guys are going to prefer a desktop application. So right now it's not on the cards. We're going to focus on the retail market, at least initially, because, well, it's a huge market and there's a huge possible market that even hasn't been tapped yet. And right now to focus on institutional for me is little putting the carriage in front of the horse. And that's because, well, without the proper regulation, you can't even begin to focus on institutional. So I'd rather get retail right, and then take those lessons learned and get institutional right from the start. Is there a Brendan James is asking if there's a flash sale just prior to launch, would it be possible to add an option to purchase with fiat via PayPal? PayPal, well, probably not. I don't see PayPal allowing us to legally use their system for a token sale. We actually just opened a PayPal account for our holding company, because we make a lot of payments, and some of those payments are paid via PayPal. So we don't yet have one for the licensed entity, but I'll put some research into that and I'll find out. But I would say it's probably not going to be possible. But fiat may be possible, but not through PayPal. How about C-Trader from Kerming Cho asking how about C-Trader? So yeah, eventually I do think before we even create our own desktop application, both MT4, possibly MT5, so that's MetaTrader 4, MetaTrader 5, and C-Trader will possibly be available through CoinMetro because we already have those platforms at FXPay. So yes, that's a possibility, and that can happen much faster than having our own application. It can happen as soon as we have a stable API and fix setup, which should happen right outside of the beta, right when we get outside of beta. So sometime towards the end of the summer, early fall. So yes, I do envision that to happen. Good point. Jason Parser asking, will the API be ready in the beta? Initially in the beta, no. As we get towards the end of the beta, yes, more than likely. There'll be different iterations of the API, so the API might be available during the beginning of the beta, but the actual, let's say, production-ready API, including fix, and then probably REST, and maybe some additional, maybe fast for market quotes, I'm not sure yet, more than likely won't be ready until we roll out into production. Calvin Rantuene, I think I already tried to pronounce that, so I'm going to call you Calvin. Calvin, I hope the price of XCM at flash sale will be at least 15 cents or higher, since it's useless for me buying it back when the prices are high. Yeah, the idea, well, one of the ideas for the flash sale is obviously to induce those price increases based on a time, some type of time standard. But again, we'll see. The decision hasn't been made there. Obviously, there's lots of pros. There are some cons as well. So we'll see. It just depends on how the market is as well. It depends on, you know, if we go back into a bear run again for another month, it might not make sense. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Daniel Bragman, do you need help with website translation, or do you outsource that stuff? Well, we do it internally as much as we can when it comes to website translation. Unfortunately, during the ICO, because during our token sale, during that, we did have to outsource some things. And what you find when you outsource translations in languages that no one speaks in your organization is they screw them up. Yeah, we tend to try to do it in-house. That doesn't mean we always can. For the actual website that'll be out next week, it's going to be English only, at least initially. And until we make sure that the translations we get are accurate, it will not be released. But yeah, if you can translate into certain languages, give us an email. We'll see where we go. See what happens. Kerming Cho, when CM goes live, will there be historical data for the coins listed? If so, where are those history from? Yeah, we need to have some type of history, because if we don't have history, well, the chart is going to be pretty bare. So more than likely, initially, we will take the majority of that history from either CoinMarketCap, which would probably be the first place we would look. If they don't have enough history, or their history isn't, let's say, we're obviously going to compare between CoinMarketCap and a few other vendors. We do have history on quite an extensive history for CFDs for Bitcoin and Ethereum versus USD and Euro from several different banks and non-bank providers on the FX side. So we will compare to CoinMarketCap. If CoinMarketCap's is generally within the same range, then we may choose to use CoinMarketCap. We may choose to use others. To be honest, as far as just, let's say, non-executable historical pricing, I haven't looked that deep yet. But obviously, we will need to populate data for sure. All right, guys. Well, we're coming up just on the top of the hour here, so I don't see any more questions currently coming in. This episode, or this Facebook Live, was recorded this time, so we will make the recording available on YouTube probably in the next 2 days or so. well, maybe Monday. I may put it up over the weekend. We may want to brand it a bit or something. I'm not sure, so I'm going to ask my guys about that. We'll see when we get it up. Kerming just came in with another question. Tick chart available? Yeah, I think we will have a tick chart. Tick charts are necessary when you do any type of, obviously, smaller time frame trading, or even just to verify entry and exits, depending on what type of trader you are. So yes, I do believe we'll have tick charts available, and our IQ, Chart IQ does provide libraries for the lowest front. We can basically create any time frame we wish. So yes, tick charts should be available. Okay, guys, I appreciate the time. I will be back here again next week. So like I said, we're going to try to make this a weekly event. We had our newsletter go out today as well. I think there was a picture of some of the team here in Talon, and some of the, I think the mock-ups might have been in there. Next week, we're going to officially announce to those licenses we received in the next email. Hopefully we'll have some other updates as well that are just as exciting. And, we'll get back to some more questions and answers. So I hope I can do this every week. Obviously, if there's a week I can't for whatever reason, if I'm traveling or whatever, I'll let you guys know beforehand. Just a quick thing from Hamish Budge here. Early access to flash sales for existing holders might smooth the way. Yeah, good point. And that's something we actually thought of as well. So we may have, like, that first day of the flash sale that's at 12 cents, let's say, might just be for existing clients that own XCM until the 12 cent is sold out, or the day ends. So yeah, that's all these things. Look, before we make a final decision, we're going to release probably some type of questionnaire to the community about how everybody thinks it might be the best way to go about it if we decide to do it. And maybe we'll even incorporate that into one of our upcoming Q&A sessions. Probably makes sense. So anyway, guys, from Talon, Estonia, signing off. Thanks again, guys, for joining me for this hour or so on a Friday afternoon or Friday morning or Friday evening, depending on where you are in the world. And I will see you next Friday. I will try to jump on Telegram this week, even though it's getting more and more difficult for me to find the time to do so. But I will attempt to, and we'll get this video up on YouTube and up on probably Telegram as well once it's up on YouTube, so that people can go over it if they weren't able to make the chat. And anyway, guys, thanks again, and see you next week.